On today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, Kubiak is out. Who's in at OC for the Houston Texans? A lot of hot names linked to the team. Who gets the best out of the offense to CJ Stroud? We talk about it all and more on today's show.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, welcome to this Monday episode. We are your Texans insiders, credential media members, and Texans football analysts. John Hickman, Brian Big Sarge Barfield, the man with the big hat and even bigger smile. We are excited to talk to you guys today about the future of offensive coordinator, that coaching position for the Houston Texans. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. To end off today's show, we'll look at future personnel changes that could help with the depth of this team. This is something that I believe Big Sarge wants to have a conversation about to get ahead of the curve on. So we'll close out today's show looking at that. You guys will be surprised with that conversation. Who's the right guy for the Houston Texans as we look at Klint Kubiak has went over to Seattle. So who's in at OC for the Houston Texans? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet $5, and if you win, you will score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app and head to FanDuel.com to get started. Big Sarge.
Hey, before we even get started, shout out to All Pro Sting.
Shout out to Derek Stingley. If you guys hadn't had a chance, go to his Instagram. You will hear a familiar voice at the beginning of Derek Stingley's latest video on Instagram. And when you do, just fill those comments up with a shout out to Big Sarge at Big Sarge Sports Media on Instagram. But as we look at the offensive coordinator conversation heating up for the Houston Texans, Klint Kubiak is out. He's over in Seattle. That makes a lot of people who were against the Kubiak-Shanahan coaching tree happy, including Big Sarge. There's still a lot of hot names linked to the Houston Texans to be the next offensive coordinator. Of course, the hottest name is probably Chip Kelly, followed by Mike LaFleur, and, of course, the in-house guy, Gerard Johnson. The conversation that we need to start off with, who makes the most sense out of those three? Who makes the most sense to get the best out of the offense, and ultimately, who makes the most sense to get the best out of CJ Stroud? This will be probably a two-segment conversation. So, Sarge, let's open up with the hottest name, and this is a name that you are completely against. Chip Kelly, coming back to the NFL.
Nah, I'm John, let me tell you something. Wait, first, before we even say that, for those Klint Kubiak cheerleaders that was out there, John, you and I were involved in the same conversation with the source that said, although I think there will be much better options out there, Kubiak has no second punch. If the run game isn't working, he's lost. Maybe he grows into the rest of what he needs, but for now, he's got the same issues that he did in Minnesota. And what did I say on one of last week's shows, John?
He suffers from the same issues that Bobby Slow did.
Exactly. That Kyle Shanahan tree does not bear good fruit. But, John, Chip Kelly, right? Because that seems to be the hot name. You know how it works, John? A lot of times people will see a name, right? They'll see a name, and if you get enough people to tweet the name, then all of a sudden they're on board. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. So I went down and I looked at Chip Kelly, right? So Chip Kelly was the head coach of Oregon from 2009 to 2012. Had a great run at Oregon. Don't get me wrong. Had a great run. Hey, John, was that during his tenure there? Is that when the Garrett Blunt incident happened?
I think so.
It surely did, because, yeah. Then he went to the Philadelphia Eagles, right? From 2013 to 2015, San Francisco 49ers in 2016, UCLA from 2018 to 2023. But let me stop right here, John, for a second and talk about his time in the NFL. A lot of people don't remember that, yes, although the Philadelphia Eagles turned their season around, if I'm not mistaken, they won the NFC East. They were 10-6 in back-to-back years. There were a lot of players who did not like Chip Kelly. They did not like his authoritative type of demeanor that he had.
Deshaun Jackson talks about it all the time. Him and
LaShawn McCoy too, right? And they did not like his the iron hand in which he tried to rule with. And side note, I know that people keep using the fact of what D'Amico said about Chip Kelly as a way to say, hey man, they can reunite. No, maybe you know, there's some people that come across in other people's lives that they just want to give thanks to, but they don't never really want to work with. Now, I don't have any inside information, and I'm not saying that Chip Kelly is not a candidate. I'm not saying that D'Amico doesn't want to hire Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator. But sometimes, John, and you know this, in corporate America, you have to be cordial. And you can't just be out there bad-mouthing people, even if you think a different way behind the scenes. And so his time with the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers, yeah, right? So then he goes back to UCLA, John, where he can use that iron hand against what? College kids, against college young men playing football, because he controls their playing time. John, when he was with UCLA, they were 35 and 34 overall from 2018 to 2023. He was 2026 in the conference. So then he goes to Ohio State, right? Leaves UCLA, goes to Ohio State, and he wins the national championship. Now all of a sudden, everybody is saying, ooh, we need Chip Kelly. We need Chip Kelly. We need Chip Kelly. This is not a knock against the Ohio State Buckeyes, because I think that they are a very, very good team. But you go back and you look at some of the teams that they played and some of the teams where the offense looked great. John, there wasn't any like teams that's going to blow you away. And I think they had 2 losses throughout the season. They lost to Oregon, who they also beat later on, and they lost to Michigan. And everybody else they pretty much beat was cupcakes. So with that being said, though, John, hold on for 1 second. I'm getting somewhere. You got me? You rolling with me, right, John?
You got it.
So you leaves UCLA, goes to Ohio State, wins the national championship. Now all of a sudden, he's the hottest thing smoking. You know what Ohio State has become, John? Ohio State has become what Alabama was with Nick Saban, reform camp for wayward coaches. Because if I'm not mistaken, Boston College head coach Bill O'Brien was where before he went and got the job at Boston College?
Alabama.
And he was also the offensive coordinator.
I just let me say this, because I'm not necessarily going to advocate for Chip Kelly, but what I will do is make sense of it, which is why I like the dynamic. You know, whatever the Houston Texans do, I'm just here to make sense of it, or why it's a bad decision. I don't necessarily think Chip Kelly would be a bad decision. Let me say that. Those areas and places where Chip Kelly had the most problems, he was the head guy in control, aside from Oregon. And Oregon got to a national championship. They reached a peak. I'm not sure we're going to see Oregon win a national championship in my lifetime, but the head guy in Philly, right? The head guy at UCLA. The head guy, was he the head guy in San Fran as well?
Yes.
Head guy in San Fran. Gets to Ohio State, he's not the head guy. He's not. And so you look at some of these guys, which I'm going to talk about one of these guys when we come back in the second segment. You look at some of these coaches, coordinators, in their role, they are great.
Yeah.
Some passing coordinators shouldn't be offensive coordinators. Some offensive coordinators should not be head coaches, especially when you rush the process. And so I just want to say that I think being a head guy hurts Chip Kelly. But to add to that, do you want an innovative offense that will help take the pressure off of C.J. Stroud? Then the answer would be yes to Chip Kelly. Yeah. And I mean, look at both running backs at Ohio State. They combined for 50 catches out of the backfield. We've talked about here on this show how you would like to see the utilization of Joe Mixon in the passing game. He aided in getting the best version out of Will Howard, which I think is extremely helpful. And I think what I like the most about getting Chip Kelly, that idea altogether, is he could bring over Justin Fry, the offensive line coach, also running game coordinator, a guy that he spent time with at UCLA and Ohio State, which would be a bonus. So before we continue over to who would be the right guy for the Houston Texans, the conversation of Chip Kelly, I think, is an idea, because last year the Houston Texans offense was so bad, so predictable, and in a lot of ways just completely dead, Chip Kelly would be able to, at least the idea, come in and give this offense some life to it. All things considered, would you trust Chip Kelly with this offense, with this roster, how it's currently put together, or would you rather go back to Bobby Sloak? I would say most people would say Chip Kelly, given everything that we know.
And
so
I know we're going to continue this in a second segment, so I will reserve my take.
You guys make sure you stick around. We got more Locked On Texans. Who is the right guy for Houston? They'll have their pick. All small business owners, come here. Lock in. Lock in. Your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5 o'clock. Your business is always on your mind, which at times you need some little help to hire, right? And, right now, maybe the Houston Texans are all down LinkedIn trying to figure out who's the best candidate for the job. But you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free. Also, LinkedIn makes it easy to post your resume and create a profile for free. You can share it with your network and get qualified candidates all in one place. How does it work? Well, you post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help write job descriptions, then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the #hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn has helped them find high-quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back, Locked On Texans fans, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Texans podcast. In the last segment, we talked about Klint Kubiak is gone. He's out. And who's in at the OC for Houston? Now, who is
I just want to say this. Kubiak being out, I think, is the right decision. And I'm going to say that because you just had a 2-year sample size of what that system would look like. And I think I've said this many times. You heard me say this. Hey, you need somebody that can create counterpunches. And when everything ain't perfect, that offense has not produced, at least if not from Kyle Shanahan himself, good counterpunches. And so I think that's a good blessing in disguise for the Houston Texans.
Well, John, let me say this. I want to clarify something that I said in the first segment about Bill O'Brien. He never got a chance to coach at Ohio State. He got hired as the head coach for so he did go to Alabama. And then after he left Alabama, he tried to, he was going to be, he was the offensive coordinator before they went out and got Chip Kelly because he got a head coaching job. And so that's why I say that, when you look at at Chip Kelly and what he can bring in, I mean, is it really Chip Kelly or is it Ryan Day? I mean, Ryan Day has put together a great system up at Ohio State. And although it took them a while to be able to get over the hump, I just feel like that they've already had everything in place and that it was just their time. So, John, I don't believe that Chip Kelly is I don't believe that Chip Kelly is the right guy for the Houston Texans. I don't know if his mindset, unless he's changed, if Chip Kelly has changed who Chip Kelly was, and now he can take a job being a NFL offensive coordinator and not being the man, then it may work out. Because that, I'm going to tell you right now, John, and you know this too, that Houston Texans organization is a family, and they're not finna let anybody come in and disrupt that family. Ask Deontay Johnson. You're not going to come in there and you're not going to rule with the iron hand. You're not going to be Bill O'Brien 2.0 for the Houston Texans.
To that point, his journey could have very well been, a humbling experience for him.
Good.
2 back-to-back situations in Philly and San Fran where it didn't work out. And I think his Philly situation, that's where a lot of people look at him and put him under the scope of the type of coach that he was. I'm not going to say is. I don't have any insight to that, but those guys let it be known how much they hated Chip Kelly as a coach. Now,
but he was at UCLA, John, and didn't do anything there either. So we're giving him this first position as external because of
what I wanted to add to that. What I wanted to add to that, Ryan Day was at Ohio State for a few years, and they didn't get it done with all of the talent, i.e. C.J. Stroud, who's here in Houston.
Right, but they
And
competed though, John.
I've gotten 3 years of watching Will Howard before he went to Ohio State. They're going to bring in the talent, especially outside at receiver, especially at running back, especially at line, offensive line. But the pros of having somebody get the best version out of Will Howard, is a Will Anderson's already good. Will Howard, I think, is a plus. And also just the idea of, and I've said it before, whoever's going to be your offensive coordinator, give them the opportunity to bring in who they believe is the best fit for offensive line coach. I like Justin Fry. I like his resume.
John, I'm going to tell you this. When I look at Chip Kelly, I think Chip Kelly really got his job at Ohio State because Ryan Day owed him one. Because didn't Ryan Day coach quarterbacks at Philly? Didn't Ryan Day coach quarterbacks at San Francisco during the tenures of Chip Kelly? This is one of the, hey, I owe you one. I got you. Come on up here. And now, same way Nick Saban used to do coaches. Hey, all right, come down here. I don't owe you one, but I'm going to help you get your, get you back on track and put you back on that road to be able to get another job. I mean, it ain't a DEI hire, but still. John, who do you think is the right guy for?
So we got a couple of names. Chip Kelly is out there again. With Chip, I'm more so just advocating for the idea. Another guy who's out there, we've been told about Mike LaFleur. He's a part somewhat of that coaching tree. But here's the thing about that branch, that tree you don't like.
Yeah.
Every tree has a branch that can produce good fruit. Mm-hmm. Plays organ. The Shanahan tree, the Gary Kubiak tree, I honestly believe Sean McVay is the GOAT of coaches under that tree.
Sean McVay is a branch that fell out and started his own tree.
And so I'm glad you said that, because that tree, very fruitful, right? So there's a guy that I think who has spent time under Sean McVay, who has also spent time in New England. So you look at the ties between Nick Caserio, Nick Caley. Spent some time with Josh McDaniels. Say whatever you want about Josh McDaniels, the head coach. But when you look at Josh McDaniels, the offensive coordinator, and how Josh McDaniels was the first offensive coordinator that I had a chance to sit back and realize, how is he allowing Tom Brady's job to get so easy? That's the guy that opened my eyes to the offensive side of the ball altogether. Nick Caley is a guy who spent time under both Sean McVay, under Josh McDaniels, and I think that he's a guy that, because of the time he spent under great minds, and also a Mike LaFleur who's in LA right now, he's a guy that I wouldn't be shocked if Houston brought in for an interview and say, hey, what can you do with what we have here in Houston? Because the whole goal is, who's going to make my quarterback's job easy?
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad
and it'll lead me to, is it Gerard Johnson, the guy who's been with him since he was a kid, that knows his quarterback like the back of his hand? Is it that guy? Is it Nick Caley? Or again, is it a Chip? Who's making this job easier for us?
John, listen, and I know I never thought that I would say this name in my life. I said it last week, and then I went back and I looked and I said, are you sure you want to say this name? And then I watched him again and I said, yes. John, listen, we're talking about the times that Chip Kelly, wasn't good at Philly and wasn't good at San Francisco.
Man. Who you about to say?
Hey, Cliff Kingsbury. I know that he did not have the best. I know he doesn't have the best resume as far as the head coach is concerned when he was in Arizona. But you're talking about a guy who has coached Patrick Mahomes, who is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
The best quarterback in the NFC, who just got to the NFC Championship game for a move that's not loud. He's just going right back to offensive coordinator in a harder division. Does he leave conference? Excuse me. Does he leave?
John.
Does he leave, Sarge?
John, let me tell you something. You look at what the Houston Texans have. And I know that it's going to take a little bit to be able to get Cliff Kingsbury if they're able to get him. And so he's coached Patrick Mahomes, right? Kyler Murray, even though he wasn't the best, Kyler Murray was a Heisman Trophy winner?
He was. Best quarterback in the state of Texas history.
Okay. And then he had Jaden Daniels, which if the Washington Commanders was able to hold on to the football on Sunday, the score wouldn't have looked as bad. They wouldn't have gotten a double nickel put up on them, but the offense couldn't hold the ball. It wasn't the offensive play calling. It was the fact that they couldn't hold on to the ball, and they had 3 turnovers on and gave the Philadelphia Eagles a short field, or the defense couldn't stop. Now, this is where it gets interesting, John, because I would leave Washington if I'm Cliff Kingsbury, because if all I gotta do, I know that I got a top 5 defense on the other side. Then I know that I had a top 5 defensive play caller in D'Amico Ryans. I'm looking over there and I'm seeing Sting, Lassiter, Bullock, Aziz, Will, Daniil. I'm like, cool. If we turn the ball over, if we turn the ball over on offense, I know that the defense can go and get the ball back. And I get an opportunity to coach Nico Collins. And I get an opportunity to coach CJ Stroud. And I get an opportunity to coach Joe Mixon. And so Houston has everything to offer an offensive coordinator like Cliff Kingsbury to definitely move him away from the Washington Commanders. And he's from Texas. And ain't no state tax here, John.
I'm sorry. I just don't see it. And I didn't see it with Chip Kelly, and then Chip Kelly became a hot name linked to the Houston Texans that was reported on Friday. So one thing about me, I would be glad to be wrong. To your point, the quarterbacks he's worked with have all been phenomenal quarterbacks. And when we see CJ Stroud use his legs, right? You know, he said his slow speed, but he got a little ump to him a little bit. I mean, he ain't Lamar Jackson or Jaden Daniels, but he can run it when he's open. He got a long stride. Cliff gets the best out of dual threat quarterbacks. And again, his work with Patrick Mahomes, if we believe CJ Stroud is going to be the elite quarterback that we've seen in his rookie year and get back to that and even further, then Cliff will make sense. What I like about all of these guys, including Gerard Johnson, right? And again, I'm going to say his name because he is the top name for the internal hire. Cliff has a proven track record with elite quarterbacks. I think what happened with Kyler Murray in Arizona more so falls on Kyler Murray.
Yep.
Chip Kelly, innovative offense, will make your offensive job for your quarterback easier. Gerard Johnson just knows what his quarterback does well down to a T, right? And they brought Houston. I mean, Houston brought him back last year and gave him a pay raise.
Yeah.
So obviously, the idea and thought was always there, back in the head, middle of the head, and now maybe front in the head. That was always an idea for the Houston Texans.
I like it, John, but he's never called plays.
And that's where, for me, I get to a point where I'm like, I want somebody for Houston that's experienced, which is why I like Darrell Bevell a lot. He's over in Miami right now. Again, go look at what he did for the Seattle Seahawks and go look at what he did as a passing game coordinator for the Miami Dolphins when that team was healthy in 2022, averaged nearly 30 points a game, right? So that's the name I like personally. Houston ain't been linked to him, but they got some good choices. I'm eager to see and talk about who Houston hires because this is one of those crucial years. You cannot go back. You cannot revert. And the defense in our minds is all comfortable. The offense is where we have our concerns. And so, but on the defensive side of the ball, you believe there's a personnel change that could help this team in the future. So we'll close out with that conversation. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. We all love it. Easy to use and navigatable app. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially winning $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet $5. All you have to do is bet $5 you will have a chance to win $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel.com, the official sports book of Super Bowl 59. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Sarge feels like Houston and Jalen Pitre could kind of
You
get
gonna
a
just
little
ruin my
interesting.
surprise like that, right? You're just gonna ruin my surprise for the listeners, John.
Well, I just said it could get interesting. Now, what you say next is all on you.
John, I know that before he got hurt, nickel cornerback / safety Jalen Pitre was having a very good year. And I think that there was a stretch run, John, I think of 3 games where he was involved in either creating a turnover for the Houston Texans or getting a turnover for the Houston Texans. I think, what was it, the first play of the Packers game that he tipped the ball and Neville Hewitt was able to get the interception? It caused him to turn the ball over. And I think 2 games after that, he just had his hands in it. And I like the way that the Houston Texans moved him, from the cornerback, nickel corner position to the safety position, depending on what plays they were doing. John, if I'm the Houston Texans, I'm saying I love the way you played that nickel corner position, Jalen. I love the way that you were able to adapt and to be able to be on the line of scrimmage at times, but I need you to go back to playing safety. And I think that him going back to playing safety, because here's the thing, John, when he was playing safety, it was really just him back there and Eric Murray and MJ Stewart. And, I think even with Jimmy Ward, but Jimmy couldn't really stay healthy. But, John, you put him at the strong safety position because the Houston Texans like to walk their safeties down anyway. They like to walk them towards the line. You can still use him in the nickel corner position. And I also believe that if D'Amico can play with 3 linebackers, we know what Azeez Al-Shaair can do. We know what Henry To'oTo'o can do. He stepped up, and now you get a healthy Christian Harris. You find a way to get all 3 of those on the field at the same time, using Christian in that nickel corner position if you have to, but also having Jalen Pitre as the strong safety, because what you found is your free safety in Kalen Bullock, who is rangy, who is athletic, who can cover the field, and you put Jalen back there where he can see everything, come downhill to also be a run stopper. Because I honestly and truly believe, John, that if the Houston Texans would have had Jalen Pitre against the Kansas City Chiefs, that Travis Kelce wouldn't have went off like that. So I would love to see Jalen come back and play the strong safety position and then move him in and out when you have to at the nickel corner.
That conversation is interesting because I'm writing down something in response. Does Kalen Bullock, we like to call him Hawk. Does he clean up? Does he clean up on his open field mistakes that he'll make and the angles that he takes? So we got to look at year 2 of Bullock. I want to make sure I respect the young man. We got to make sure that year 2 Bullock, those areas in his games where you can clearly see him out on field, like the Travis Kelce catch that went for the touchdown. Yeah, I think that was that Miles Brown on that play when he caught it in the middle of the field and we thought Azeez was supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So, but
it was
on the tackle attempt,
on
that tackle attempt, bad angle by the rookie, and that led to eventually a touchdown by Kareem Hunt. And also, I'm going to say this because we didn't see him play in the last 2 games, maybe about 10 snaps. Yeah, Houston has 3 linebackers in Azeez, Henry T, Christian Harris. Who's on the inside of the guys that we expect to play? Who's on the outside? And what does the future hold for Christian Harris? Was it a knick-knack injury that Houston didn't want to, aggravate? I don't know what happened with that, but it looked like the comfortability level with Henry T was higher than Christian Harris. Now, granted, he missed the whole season for the most part. But Jalen Pitre helps you tremendously around the line of scrimmage. And then also asking him to go back after only playing 8 snaps at free safety this year, according to PFF. I think that would be one of those coaching malpractices moments where if you are going to continue to get the best out of that player, specifically Pitre, you leave him where he's proven to be the best at.
Well, John, let me ask you this. Coming into this season, right? Coming into this season, who did we have high hopes for at the linebacker position?
Christian Harris.
Did we not see Christian Harris turn his game around later in the season because of how D'Amico was able to coach him up?
This year?
No, coming into this year.
Oh, yeah. So off of last year. Yes.
Off of last year, right? And
Yes.
then you go out and you go get an Azeez Al-Shaair, who is the on-field brain for D'Amico Ryans. I feel like they share a brain. But then this year, John, who turned their career around in their second year at the linebacker position? Now with Azeez in the middle, you can play both of them at the same time because they both do different things. Where Christian doesn't mind tackling. I think that Henry is a stronger tackler, especially in the run game, but he's bad in pass coverage.
He got better this year. I do want to give him credit. He got better this year.
Former defensive back in Christian Harris, who has the speed of a cornerback, John, who has the speed of a cornerback and a wide receiver. You could also use him in those passing downs. So now what do? Now you give Jalen Pitre the ability to be able to roam and put him wherever you need him to put him, right? Because there's a lot of times that the Houston Texans was also playing single high safety. So if you're going to play single high safety with Kalen Bullock and you have Christian Harris in the game to stop the run game, you have Azeez in the game to stop the run game, you have Henry To'oTo'o to stop the run game, and you have Jalen Pitre, John, I just feel like that's like having 4 linebackers on the field, but it also, I think that Jalen, with his knack and ability to be able to get to the ball, I think that would help them out a lot.
I guess what I'm saying is Houston has 6 picks in this upcoming NFL draft. The lowest in a couple of years. Who's in that room that's tradable? And with the growth I've seen from Henry T and my belief in D'Amico Ryans, as long as he's here to be able to coach up a linebacker, does teams come calling for Christian Harris, and does Houston answer the phone to make a move?
No. You can call all you want to. Nick got call ID. He gonna look. Nope. I know. Look, he gonna look and be like, "Nah, I know what you calling for. No, thank you."
I know that ain't Aaron Glenn calling me.
Right. No, thank you.
I know that ain't Elliot Wolf calling me. I know that ain't Elliot. Thank y'all for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube. Tell a friend to also tell a friend to put it in their group chat to subscribe to the Locked On Texans channel. Follow me on Twitter or X at John_Hickman12.
And you can follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Sarge Sports with a Z at the end. Make sure y'all follow me too, because I got something special for y'all.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace. Go Rockets.